We will talk about dalits, a group of human beings who are considered unclean, disgustingly dirty, so that he must not touch others, be touched, even his shadow is considered unclean. This is a most terrible humanitarian phenomenon in India, even worse than apartheid in South Africa. But somehow, although the victims of this racial discrimination reached 200 million human beings, but the world turned a blind eye, did not discuss this. In fact, most of you who watch this video must have heard the term dalits for the first time. India is now one of the countries whose economic development is the most advanced. Even the last 2 years, this overtaking China. Their technology also now cannot be underestimated anymore. They became one of the developing countries with the most advanced technology. But they have a big problem in terms of humanity. They traditionally still maintain a stratification that they call caste. Caste in India is completely unchangeable and cannot be changed even across generations. So if I were a Sudra, then no matter how great my son is, no matter how smart my son is, he still shouldn't change castes even if he excels, even though he is rich. My son means that he has to work according to his caste or according to his color. Among these somewhat confusing stratifications, the most victimized it was the Dalits caste or the pariah caste. What is it? They are principally considered outside of caste, outside of the four colors, so they are considered dirty. If you want to mention which part of their dirtiness is, we will mention some of these cases. According to B.R. Ambedkar, he was one of the Dalit figures. He said that it is a matter of course if in a village there are Dalits people who they are wrapped in a bowl saliva collection device in front of their neck so that he says his saliva does not dirty others. And in other villages there are also often cases of Dalits people being given a special belt behind him, and the belted is given a broom or a long branch until it hits the ground so that when they walk then the traces will be erased. They are treated like that because it is considered that even the traces are unclean. They should not be touched. If someone touches the traces of their shadows or even touches the skin, the person in question must perform a very complicated purification. There is another case that Hamid mentioned. A Dalits claiming to the BBC it was commonplace when a Dalits were tied up and then beaten by a mob in front of the police's eyes, and no one helped him. This was also, he said in the BBC, it was considered commonplace. There was another case in May 2017 when there were officials from Uttar Pradesh in India willing to come. The whole Dalits people were distributed to them soap and shampoo, was told to shampoo everything because the officials wanted to come, because those Dalits people did not come to the place where the officials came, but the place had to be sanctified. So that's the condition of the Dalits. Then there is another case again, May 31, 2017, a young man, he died. The reason was because he had a horse. According to the traditional Indians, people should not have a horse, or should not have a vehicle, or should not have an item that is considered a symbol of the luxury of a horse. It is a characteristic of people of the night caste, or whatever it is anyway. Dalit should not have a horse, and when he had a horse he was killed, and the police again ignored that case. Another example, in 2015 a little girl was beaten by a mob, then threatened to no longer be there in that village. She had to leave or she died. The reason why? Because the little girl accidentally, her shadow touched the person in the village who said she was taller than she was. These are real cases in India, reported but not legally processed, or processed but not the maximum reason, because they are Dalits. The Indians did so because according to their beliefs, the Dalits had done such a bad thing in the previous life. They believed in reincarnation, that they had to do the cleansing of sins. These Dalits should not be helped. They should not be helped. I also read yesterday that there was an Indian youth who, when his mother died, there was not a single villager who was willing to help at least to open the tomb. There was not a single one who made the ritual ceremony, and so on did not exist. The young man, until his mother's body was then stored on a bicycle, and for tens of kilometers he searched the allowable area for his mother's body, because in the village there should be no body of his mother. This is the case of Dalits. And how are the statistics? We see the statistics mentioned by Reuters, which mentioned that out of 145,000 cases of violence in just 1 year, yes, 145,000 cases of violence in Dalits people, 90% of them were not continued in legal cases / ignored. Then the Dalits were 90% people who were below the poverty line, 95% were illiterate. Why is it like that? Because in India, also the report mentioned by the NCAR states that 30% of the Indian population refuses to touch them. So when they go to the public school, the Dalits people, if they go to school they must be disturbed if the school and by the principal, where the teacher must sit at the very back of his bench and no one should accompany him, because if anyone accompanies him later it will become unclean. This is the case in India. 1 in 3 schools in India treats it that way. Consequently, the Dalits people are 90% they are below the poverty line and 95% are illiterate among them, meaning that 5% of them are quite educated. They still do not get the proper treatment even though they have the title PhD, even though they have the title as professor, because there is also a case of a PhD from the Dalits tribe of the Dalits tribe. When he came to the restaurant, then the owner of the restaurant told this person, although his title PhD told this man to wash his own glass, wash his own dishes, and wipe his desk, because it was considered unclean. Where do people know that he is Dalits? Because from the birth Dalits from it must be marked from his name. His name has a special name Dalits, so people can't be complicated and have been discovered from the beginning, and they also have to wear special clothes, so the clothes are marked. So they should only work in the dirtiest areas that are the most unclean. They should not work at a high level even though they perform well, even though they have good education. They can only equalize the skins of animals. They can only be farm laborers who do not have land. They can only be scavengers. And the lowest jobs in India, they must be like that, and it is hereditary. His son and grandson and so on should not move stratification. The next case, according to the National Crime Registry Bureau of India in 2000 states, every day there are 2 Dalits attacked, 3 Dalits women were raped and 2 houses burned. 2 people were killed every day in India. Because of what? Because they are Dalits. The rape case against women in India was particularly severe against Dalits. Dalits women, statistically 70% have been raped, and 90% of Dalits people's rape cases never proceed to court because they were intimidated. So it is as follows: violence on Dalits only 5% reported, and of those 5% only 30% were followed up by the police. They were completely discriminated against, had no legal umbrella, had nothing. Indeed, the Indian law of 53, then there were some revisions of later years. There was indeed a special protection of Dalits, but this matter concerns tradition, and people consider this part of religion, so religious extremism is more dangerous than political extremism, so when they are united it is really much terrible. But politically, the Dalits people in India's formal legal law are declared protected and declared they are equal to the rest of the people, but since tradition in India mentions otherwise, then Dalits people have hitherto received very remarkable discriminatory treatment. It is not related to religion, if indeed it is to be disputed with religion. Not only Hindus who do so, but Sikhs, Muslims, Christians and others, are carried away to assume that Dalits are unclean. This is a very sad side of humanity. On the one hand, even India has a special ambulance for cows, there is a cow protection law, but on the other hand, they really treat humans so badly just because he is a Dalit.